And we're started.
All right, currently 6:36. Currently call the meeting of the Decennial Efficiency Committee to order. Julie, would you mind doing a roll call vote for us, please?
So Diana Anton is not here. Amanda DePalma, here. Sean Jones,
Present.
Matthew Mitchell,
Present.
and Rick Morrow.
Here.
All right, we don't have any minutes to approve because this is our first meeting. We do have a quorum. I'm going to turn this right over to Marlon
All right.
to give us
Yep.
an overview of. I got no citizen comments.
Nope.
Citizens.
Okay.
All right, moving right along to old business and a new business.
All right, new business. So the introduction and purpose. So the origin of this was Governor Pritzker signed the Decennial Committee on Local Government Efficiency Act 50-ILCS 70 into law. The purpose of this is requires any local government that levies a tax other than country or municipal to form a committee to study local efficiencies and report recommendations regarding efficiencies and increased accountability to the county board. So we obviously, as a park district, fall under that where we're required by law to comply. The requirements are that the committee must be formed by June 10th, which it was, and at least once every 10 years after June 10th, 2023. Members of the committee will include our elected or appointed members of the Board of Commissioners and at least 2 residents. We have Jerry Gibbs here, who is representing and has been appointed already at this time to the committee, and Mike Miro was not able to make it today, but I will fill him in. Let's see here. So the committee serves without compensation but may be reimbursed. The committee shall meet at least 3 times within 18 months and summarize its work and findings within a written report, which shall include recommendations in respect to increased accountability and efficiency, and shall provide the report to the Administration Office of Cook County. So as you saw too in that packet was a template that we can use. I'll start doing that research, which I think is also a good practice and exercise for me also, because it has me dive deep into obviously Evanston, municipalities, and IGAs, intergovernmental agreements. So yeah, that was the introduction and the purpose. Like I said, we've already identified Mr. Jerry Gibbs. Thank you so much for volunteering. Appreciate it, thank you. So now, one of the things that we need to do is identify existing efficiencies or intergovernmental agreements. I just had a quick email to my staff, seeing what we had. As of this point, I was told that we do not have any official intergovernmental agreements with anyone here in Evanston, including, Parks Department, the village, school districts. But we do have, we do work with them. There just isn't an official agreement with them. I don't know if that's the case with everything. That's what I was, my staff is pretty aware of everything going on. But if it isn't, let me know, please, and I can look into it.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I can't think of any. Official agreement meaning like there's a contract?
Yes.
Or money that exchanges
Yes.
in between?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, outside of like Bite the Ridge, right, maybe some concerts, and those, I don't think there's that many other places that Bridgeville works with the City of Evanston and City of Evanston Parks and Rec. Definitely not.
Right.
I can't think of any that would be contractual.
Right.
The only one that I'm aware of that we ever had in my tenure affiliation with the district was the after-school program.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
School
But
district.
that's died.
Okay. I think the thing with that too is, and that's neither good nor bad, obviously, because it just depends on the municipality and where we work and how we, where we're going and what our goals are. So I think it's just something that's a fact that right now we don't. I think that's something we can talk about though in the next meeting, or that's the conversation that should we reach out to local you know, other municipalities or school districts and create, you know, those partnerships and or contracts and ask those questions, are they needed? Why are they needed? So I think that'll be kind of the assignment from now until the next meeting is to, and that's kind of what the template has as well, like which ones do you have? Are there any potential ones that would work out? The only ones I can think of obviously that aren't, it's just programs like AYSO or things like that. But that's something that we can dive into, and I'll start putting that together from the template that we have. So we've talked about the existing intergovernmental agreements.
Charles?
All right, Charles. And identification of efficiency opportunities, I think we've already touched on that a little bit. You know, we can put together a list, just, you know, school districts, City of Evanston, library. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, the library is under the City of Evanston, or are they a completely separate entity in Evanston?
Separate taxing entity.
Okay.
But under,
It's a hybrid.
Yeah, because they're unique from what I've seen and read. They are a unique municipality. Okay.
And City of Evanston doesn't have a independent park district. An independent taxing park district. It's just,
It's an integrated park district, but a separate taxing library district.
Okay. So that's something I'll also put in the template, just kind of, that's all the research, so we can just have the facts for it and go over that. The review of Ridgeville Park District ordinances, rules, policies, procedures. Honestly, that's everything that I'm doing now. So it's perfect timing, because then it's almost, you know, my report as the executive director going through all this as well and working with you guys, the board on this. So that's obviously, I don't think anything that's going to be done like by the next meeting, but like the rules and policies maybe, so we can kind of parse those, I think, throughout the meetings that we have. If that's okay with everyone, if you guys want, you know, to go through these faster, that's absolutely fine. I just wanted, like, policies and rules right now are like that's what I was going through right now with staff and everything else.
Sure.
And reviewing
We
those.
should take our time with those.
Yeah.
so yeah, I think there's two things. One is the efficiency report that is pretty low on my priority list. The other is the substantive work of RPD ordinance, rules and policies.
Right.
And that's very high on my
Yeah.
kind of to-do list.
Mhm.
We've talked recently, the Ready Committee's been doing work on ordinance review. Charles and I have talked about perhaps instituting passing a whole new ordinance.
Mhm.
So that's a goal of mine.
So some of those things have already been in the works through the Ready Committee with the policies.
Yeah.
Even the digital, making it into an editable
So we
digital file.
started, but it hasn't. There's nothing substantive. There's no kind of work plan. But it's something I would like this board
Mhm.
to do in the next year.
Yeah. I think that's extremely important. That's what I'm doing. To me, it's, you know, I'm just auditing.
Just so I think
seeing where we're at right
getting up
now.
to speed where we're at.
Yeah.
And then maybe reporting back
Mhm.
to the board about the direction you want to go,
Mhm.
and
Committee, going back to the committee.
Yeah.
going back to the Ready Committee.
No, I think we need to form almost.
The efficiency committee or the board? I'm confused, I'm sorry, I walked in late.
So efficiency committee, we just need to write a report.
Right.
That's all we do.
I'm not too worried about that.
I can write a report.
Substantively, though, as a board, a goal of mine is to pass an updated ordinance in the next year. And so I'm open to timeline for that. I don't think we need an independent committee for it.
for the ordinance
To pass a new ordinance,
regarding, sorry.
everything.
So the general ordinance
Oh,
of the park district.
yeah, to redo the rules.
Revise it,
Yes.
restate it,
Yeah. Now, is that,
you'll restate it, is what you'll do.
and the reason we're talking about that is because the efficiency committee they want the efficiency committee to look that over.
One of the things the efficient, yes.
Does.
One of the things.
We're doing that anyway. So I think that's probably the main goal that we want to get out of the efficiency committee over the next 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
Outside of that, I think we're such a small park district that, like, I think I would assume we're fairly efficient already, right? Like, there's not,
Yes.
and as far as like reaching out to other departments and across the city, right? Like, I think Marlon is gonna have enough on his plate already with that ordinance, getting up and running here, that I don't think we need to create more work for him at this point.
So, you know, we have a state mandate to create an efficiency report, and we will do that.
Here we are.
We'll meet 3
Yeah.
times in the next 18
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Uh,
Off the record, I've already talked to park districts that are done.
Yeah.
They met three times in a week. And just
Really?
called it a day.
I just did it.
Yep, called it a day. Are working on the report right now. In fact, a couple of them have started sending me like, this is what we did, just so you're aware if you ever want to just. So there's.
Steal our work. Yeah.
It's possible to do this within. It doesn't have to be on a monthly. It doesn't have to be within. It's just within 18 months.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's logical if when you take a step back and say, okay, why does Evanston have 3 different park districts? Do you think there's some way to consolidate and do it? I mean, it sounds intuitively like a sensible thing to say. But from the frame of reference of having done these type of exercises in non-for-profits, when I used to be on the board for Connections for the Homeless, and when I worked in banking and went through 26 mergers in banking, what seems so intuitively obvious when you get into it, you find out, guess what? No, if you got a bookkeeper, and they're both fully utilized, and you merge the organization, there's enough work for 2 bookkeepers. You're still gonna need 2 you're not gonna reduce it.
right.
You know, the equivalent here would be if it takes X amount of staff to run summer camps, and just because you merge in with another district and you're double or triple the number of participants, you're still going to need the same number of staff to do it. So it's not obvious where we have any opportunities for efficiency. You know, maybe on an administrative level you could argue you would, but I would say even there, probably not, because you still need certain management to staff ratios. And so, okay, maybe you don't have 3 executive directors, you have 1, but you still have 2 other bodies that are helping manage and run the organization. They just have different titles, but you do the same kind of thing with play with people's titles.
Well,
That's kind of my perspective.
I don't think merging with the city of Evanston is on the table right now, so.
No, I mean, I think the only, in my mind, I don't think we would ever want to merge in a way to give ourselves less staff. I think maybe possibly the only way I could see like a good merger would be the city would be maybe for like equipment type stuff, right? Like rather than purchasing a snow plow because we have so little area to plow, we talked to the city about plowing for us. That, you know, maybe that type of efficiency.
And those are on the table. And I think those are the things that we're looking at too, and maybe just on that level of saying like, well, how can we work with our other local governments? And maybe that's something that comes out of the report that we're like, you know what, we've decided that we're gonna, split that.
You know, you take a piece of equipment, take a $40,000, $50,000 truck, you have it for 10 or 15 years, you spread that out per year.
Yeah, right.
The annual cost of that
Yeah.
isn't a big number. There's not a big efficiency to squeeze out of it. And if it causes the city to then wear and tear their vehicle because they have more they're doing with it,
Oh, yeah, of course.
you end up, the offset is they end up replacing the vehicle faster. So between the 2 entities, you don't, again, necessarily
No,
really
yeah.
see a gain.
It's a good point.
You just shift it from one entity to the other, that's all.
We could buy things like road salt from the city. School districts do that. Some government entities buy road salt from the city. They can buy it in a much bigger quantity and maybe there's some efficiency there.
Yeah, I'm interested in resource stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That any resources we can gain from a larger organization, city, state, county.
Yep, I'm put under just opportunities.
2,000
Yeah.
road salt a year, so what are we gonna save?
Yeah, I just, there's nothing glaring to me. After school programs with the school district. We've done that in the past. I don't think we have the resources to go for it. If the district came to us, or we could offer
Right.
in a way that would benefit the park district. I'm open to the conversations.
All right.
If we did that, we'd probably do it with a partner providing the programming, so we already do that.
All right, maybe there's some good ones. Is everyone okay with that? We'll move on then to determination of future meeting dates. I think the other thing I'd ask for is that we do it after summer.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
October.
Yeah, I'd be,
How does October work with our? Yeah, that's good. As far as-
October is good, it's after
Good
the,
slow month.
Yeah. as
Yeah,
far as the budget.
October's a good month.
Okay, so October 12th.
let me see.
Third Thursday, right?
Yep.
And then,
Second.
Second, don't mess with me.
and then how about, what if we just got the next one done in November?
Tough time of year.
No.
I suggest.
You want to wait till January, February.
Well, because we have the audit, the levy ordinance, we got a lot of stuff happening.
Okay, great. So when's our next,
So I would say,
February?
February is the best date to pick.
February the 8th, 2024?
Okay.
Super Bowl.
Oh, that doesn't work for me, guys.
It's Thursday.
The Bears won't be.
Come on. Not with that attitude. All right, so then I'll put on October 12th and February 8th. Keep it at 6:30.
Not like those are set in stone, they can change.
Yeah, they can change. Yeah, they can change. There'll be more than enough time if something comes up.
I move we adjourn.
Just a second.
6.
Time is?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 6:53.
All right. We got
7 minutes.
Well, you can do the public comments for this meeting.
Public comment?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You guys had enough?
We talked on the phone, but yeah, this is not in person.
And I thought this room used to be bigger.
Larson, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Diana Anton, Amanda Palma, Tom Jones,
Here.
Matt Mitchell,
Here.
Steve Brown.
So we don't have to do the roll call votes now that we're in person for everything. It's okay to do it,
Yeah.
but
I like it. I'm so ingrained now.
Yeah.
I announce myself before making a motion.
Now, I know we don't have to. The only reason I was saying is just because we're recording it. Just so whoever's looked like, that was the only.
Got it. So we'll adjust. Moving on. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda is citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments this evening? Hearing none. We'll entertain a motion regarding the May 11th, 2023 minutes.
I move approval of the May 11, 2023 minutes.
I second.
Is there any discussion regarding those minutes? Hearing none. Julie, can we do a roll call vote? Do we need to do a roll call vote?
Just say all in
I don't
favor.
remember.
All in favor.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, it's unanimous. The minutes will pass. Moving on to the approval of the bills. Marlon, do you want to walk us through this month's bills?
Sure, yeah, this is just a couple of things I guess I can point out. Obviously, this was a month of, for our treasurer that obviously to start spending some of this money for some of the, our office, things that we need because we're doing so well. We've been very fiscally responsible. So there's a couple here from Manny's Landscaping. I think that we have paid through, and also so that you can see that one. That one's a little bit higher, but we did quite a bit in the past few weeks. We slip seeded the soccer fields. We also planted new grass right here outside where you see that it's been roped off for summer camp. That's going to be this week. Next week it's open again. Our guys did a lot of, Marcos was, working a lot over there, making that look nice. So I definitely wanted to pull that one out here. And also, Marcos got some new equipment from Russo Power Equipment as well, to help him throughout the year.
Can I ask you about a couple of these?
Yeah.
$1,225 to David Amber.
Amber David.
Wow, correct.
Okay.
Amber David.
I can-
Did she want a citizen comment? Go grab it, we'll do it.
I can look into that.
Okay.
Matt. Yeah.
There's,
If you look at the Bill's detail report,
Mhm.
it's a refund for summer camps.
and Calvin Company LLC, $3,280.
Hi.
If you give us just 1 minute, we can fit in another citizen comment.
In the detail report.
That is-
it lists
yeah.
that as Reba Park water fountain.
Yep.
Manny's Landscaping.
Yeah, and then Man's Landscape, that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
Just because that one is a little bit higher than I think
Yeah.
we're used to seeing, so I definitely wanted to
Sure.
pull that one out.
Lots of wood chips.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the Reba Park water fountain.
Meltzer Pertel, is that you, Charles?
That's me.
Okay. And then finally, reimbursement to yourself, Marlon, $72.96.
That was donuts.
That was, yeah. Yeah. It was donuts and coffee.
Yeah.
It was for our event, our, our eco-friendly event.
Great, I remember.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? All right. I move that we approve the June 8th, 2023 bills in the amount of $47,198.25.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. I am going to move to suspend the rules and move up citizen comment to allow for a citizen to make a comment. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. Is there any citizen who'd like to make a citizen comment?
Yes, thank you all so much. I apologize for being late. This is my turn. I am Sandra Madison. For those of you who don't know me, I used to teach garden table here, and I'm a gardener over at Elks, and I'm here about cottonwood trees. Every year, the fluff is everywhere. It's a nuisance. This year, surpassed levels like nothing I've ever seen before, and I believe it is escalated to a health and safety hazard. At this point, not only is the garden covered, but the entire children's playground area, and that fluff is highly flammable. In 2017, there were brush fires that burned parts of the garden, including one of my raised beds, and the fire department ruled that it was the train sparks that ignited the fluff and carried the wind into the garden. This year, again, the volume is just unbelievable, and it is literally all over the playground as well as the garden. I called the fire department on Monday morning to inquire, what do we do about this? Because this is a huge hazard, potentially. And I couldn't reach anybody in the admin office. 311 wanted to create a service ticket. I said, well, don't do that because I don't know what the appropriate action is, right? So I texted photos and video to Natalie earlier this week. And Marlon, hello, we don't know, I haven't met you yet, but welcome. And I am sending an email. I just didn't have a chance to get it together before today. Somebody on Sunday asked me, a passerby, I was out there, asked me if I saw the fires in the playground earlier that day. And I did not see them, but apparently there were some small fires in the playground area on Sunday. The other thing is I have no respiratory issues or allergies, and I had to wear a mask several days in a row because of the air quality. So somebody who is asthmatic, etc., I mean, the situation has made the park unusable and unenjoyable. So I don't know if the appropriate immediate action is to hose it all down. It did hit a brief rain this week. It was Wednesday, 2 days ago. It had a brief rainstorm. It flattened it, but didn't dry it. So it's still flammable. And the air is better, but it's still all over the place. So whether it's hosing, mowing, cleaning it up somehow, I don't know. Long-term solution, I know nobody wants to cut down 100-year-old trees, they're beautiful, but when it's crossed over from nuisance to hazard, and they provide no value other than a safety risk, I think that it should be considered. I know it's expensive, long-term planning required, all the things, but as an ultimate solution, I would like the board to consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Great, we will,
Not yesterday,
great, yes, thanks, I appreciate you coming in.
I will send you follow up with photos and everything.
Great. All right, any other citizen comments?
There's apparently a cottonwood super bloom.
Yes.
Yep, fact.
Cottonwood, or I guess just seeding trees in general, there's a super bloom this year. So it is like super out of control.
It's a citywide thing.
Mhm.
There was a great story on, I forget what it was, that was
Yeah.
an hour of the round table about it as well.
What, is that something you can look into?
Yeah, definitely. No, I'll definitely look at that. I actually had Marcos look at it the other day as well. So it is something that we're aware of
Yeah.
and looking at it now. I mean, we were pretty happy that we got a little bit of rain the other day, which definitely helped out.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to our regular agenda. We are on item 6, approval of the petty cash expenditures. Mark, you walk us through this.
All right. As you can see, Adobe Systems is a lot of the programs that we use for either design or PDFs, things like that. Nancy Bateman, she came in and notarized for our new commissioners. So I know that's a little bit different. Best Buy purchased a iPad so I can work on the go. GoDaddy is our website, it's our email. That has increased a little bit because I also have now had Marcos and Felipe have emails now, so I can get in touch with them. They didn't have emails prior, so now it's a little bit easier. That's how I like to communicate throughout the day with everyone, especially because they're out, so it's either calling, texting, but now at night, in the mornings, they can see what, things that we need. IAPD, Illinois Association of Park Districts, that's the IAPD boot camps that we have for our commissioners. Let's see just a little bit more here. Sam's Club is summer camps. Target as well, that's summer camps and sports. There's quite a bit that was coming in, obviously, with camp starting. KFC was, I believe that was Brian's going away lunch. So we went KFC.
All right.
Any other questions you have on it? That was also Dengio's. Getting more acclimated to the restaurant scene, so.
Yeah. All right, I move that we approve petty cash.
I have a comment. I would like us to move away from Amazon if at all possible. We should buy local if we can and not have deliveries.
Anything further?
Home Depot
Mhm.
offers 11% rebate on purchases
Okay,
when Menards is running their 11%.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah, so if you purchase from Home Depot, it has to be submitted online. You can search for Home Depot Rebate Center and it's your receipt and they will mail you 11. It's so Menards does cash, Home Depot does gift cards, but you'll get 11% gift card in the mail that we can then use for further purchases in Ridgeville. I think I can let Brian know about this once. I'm not sure if it's something that we've been doing, but with a purchase that large, I think they're currently doing it right now, so that's something that we should look into. You have to do it within 30 days of the purchase, and they only offer them certain, but all the information is on that
Okay.
Home Depot 11% rebate website.
okay. I'll talk to the staff about Amazon. I'm assuming that one of the reasons, a lot of us use Amazon obviously is because the convenience and how fast it gets here. And as you well know, the park districts, we needed it yesterday. But I'll talk to our staff to see why and how. And that'll be part of, obviously, an audit as well.
Great. All right, I move we approve the June 8th, 2023 petty cash in the amount of $8,924.79. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the monthly reports. Mr. Rodas, do you want to start us out?
Yeah, definitely. As I start off here, since June 1st, we've only had 2 trees fall. Fortunately, though, everyone was safe. Sunrise came and actually took care of the branches that we had at Cayman. And they're also looking at it, making sure that the tree is stable and is going to be okay. We had a little bit larger one, obviously, at Elks. And that one we actually discussed with Marcos and Sunrise, and that became an extreme safety issue where the whole tree could come down basically at any moment because of our drought right now, and the tree was older and not in great shape. So it was actually probably the best time for it to happen because it was right before camp started and people are going to be out and about. So after discussing it, we decided, obviously with it being a safety concern, we took the tree down on Sunrise. Took it down on Wednesday. We posted about it on our social media as well, just so people were aware. And right now there's a stump, so they're going to come and remove the stump actually tomorrow. And they also, the tree next to it, they actually trimmed as well because some of those branches were also looking like they might fall pretty quick. So that was, we were able to clear that one up pretty quick. Camp started on Wednesday, so we're all pretty excited about that. Looked like a pretty packed house Wednesday morning. I was here for the before care to check everything out and meet some parents, and it looked fantastic. I might have to bring my basketball shoes and shorts at some point. Yeah, I've met with my staff as well regarding the occurrences during the summer, whether it's our concerts in the park, camps, and everything else we have going on. And obviously, Jerry and I have been going over our budget. This one right now, that's about to end, and obviously 2024 as well. And I continue to meet, obviously, with staff regarding our policies and meeting new residents and just making my way around Evanston. And actually, I have one thing that is not on the agenda, but it happened today. We did receive a call about the truck that it was in, and I went today to go check it out. Thing about it, though, is obviously it's a car dealership. The truck, they ordered 2 trucks, the one Brian ordered, and they ordered another one just in case, and that's the one that came in, but that one's a little bit more expensive.
How much more expensive?
With the expensive $436, I believe it was, but I had him give me the PO, and I talked to Brian as well. And obviously with taxes and everything else, it comes out to, Brian had told me it was $49,000 for the last truck, and this truck comes out to $50,170.26.
What's the timeline on the truck we ordered?
He said they haven't even looked at it yet, so it's going to be a long time on that.
What do you want to do?
Honestly, at this point, I think we should bring the truck home for our staff.
What's the difference?
$1,000, more than $1,000.
I know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what on the truck
Yeah.
is different?
Oh, it has the electronic locking differential, so it's just for off. We're not going to go off-roading in it, obviously.
No, but when you, not necessary, but.
Not necessary. No,
You don't need electronic, you can just have the manual.
I told her, that's what I said to him, and I also said, well, since we've been waiting this long, let's just call it a wash. And he's like, oh, I've tried, I can't. I wasn't shocked at the answers I was given, but so that's obviously after looking it up and everything, I was like, this is obviously just for a little bit more use that we're not going to be doing. We're more of a stop and go, putting a snowplow on it.
And Jerry, is there money available if we need to spend this money?
$1,000 difference to me isn't worth getting too concerned over. The bigger issue is the budget called for a $40,000 truck. The trucks, both the other one and this one, it's $10,000 over. However, looking at the budget and the capital fund, we have not fully expended the funds from the nature-based play area or the Van Maven planned park improvements this year, so we have room in this year's appropriations to do it because we can move line items around within a fund. So I'm not concerned from a budget standpoint about it. If we deferred it to next year's budget, we still need to somehow allocate another $10,000 for that, and on top of that, $9,000 for the plow, because we still don't have the plow for it. The plow was intentionally intended to be in next year's budget. So I'm from a financial standpoint, I'm fine either way.
Any commissioners have any thoughts?
Bring the truck home.
Right.
Can I speak for you, Scott?
Yeah, for sure.
So sorry.
No problem. Yeah, I agree. Anybody else have strong feelings? I don't think, you don't really need anything from us, do you?
No, I was just making sure if you saw me driving around with a big F-250 going off-roading, you knew why.
That real nice rear differential.
Yeah, yeah.
You're chasing down cottonwoods all the
Yeah, it's with a tree in the back. It'll look like a
Maybe
Ford
one of those
commercial.
trip
Yeah.
things to get a fire line going. All right. Anything else on your report?
Nothing further.
Ms. Lee is not with us this evening. She had some medical issues. Her written report is in the packet. Moving on to Mr. Gibbs.
Okay, we'll do a run through of the financial reports. Before I dive into the reports, a little bit of notable activity this month. The Cook County Clerk has nudged us to approve the levy edit report. This is where they take the levy ordinance that was passed in December, load it into their database, and ask us to make sure that they loaded the numbers correctly. Once we sign off on it, then they still have some more work to do to incorporate the assessed values from the assessor's office and extend the taxes according to the requirements of PTEL, which is the state law that limits how much our taxes can go up each year. But what it tells, and this approval process normally happens early April. It took them until the end of May. That suggests to me they're running behind on generating tax bills. If they can make up for lost ground and still get the bills done by the end of June, we'll kind of be on track, but I think there's a probability we may not see tax bills come out for a month to 2 months later than normal.
Is this because they were behind last year, they're still behind?
I suspect probably yes. There's been no news or announcement of it, but this is, in my tenure as treasurer, this is the latest we've ever received the request to do the levy edit report. So,
December.
and that's notable activity. Sorry?
December again, right?
No, yeah, like, I think they would normally be on track to get the bills out by July. I think maybe they'll be more like August. And what they're I'm just guessing, what do I know? They may be trying to give people a little opportunity to catch up from having got hit with the two bills so close together this spring.
Aren't the bills just 55% of last year's tax or something?
That's the January.
That was the bill that came out.
That's the March one?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is the final bill. So we don't yet know the rates, but that's what the rate report will be the trigger. Typically we do the levy edit, and then it takes them about 6 weeks to issue the rates, and then the bills come out about 2 weeks after that. So we haven't seen the rates yet. Once we see the rates, then I know we're probably about 2 weeks away from bills going out. We'll be fine financially. I mean, cash flow wise, we're in good shape to get through that. Moving on to the regular monthly financials, starting with the spending side of the equation. The appropriations are running well below plan still. We've approved a lot of money in this month's bills, but kind of just eyeballing, it looks like on the recreation fund tonight you approved between 35 and 40,000. We'll also have a big payroll this month because of the summer months. That'll soak up a lot of it. But if I had to guess, we're going to end up with a surplus by the end of the year on our spending, which the reason that's unwelcome is because then that's money we need to try and spend in the next budget, which is money that we got to use up existing money before we could turn to the taxes. So we may end up in a position where we're leaving tax money on the table, which in the long run isn't a healthy thing for us to do. So more work to be done in the budget. It'll be a bit longer before I have a really solid handle on how the numbers come out for June, but that's where we're looking now. It's kind of still a spend mindset for the rest of the month. On the revenue side, we're looking pretty good. We've gotten within less than a 3% variance from the plan. which is well within the margin of error because just the collection of taxes is, they give us always a 3% boost over what we ask for to allow for people's appeals of property taxes and money we lose through kind of a leaky bucket on the collection side. Looking a little deeper, part of the reason we're so close to the plan is we've got $12,800 in the insurance settlement for the vandalism to the basketball court. That's money we didn't expect to get that we got, but we can't spend it because we didn't know we were going to get penalized. We didn't have money in the budget to spend it. So that money will carry over and be earmarked to repair the basketball court in the next budget season. On the annual levy, normally we should have received 55% of our taxes by now. We're about $60,000 short of that number. That could be because people are being a little slow to pay their taxes because the 2 tax bills in a row so close together made it difficult for some people to get their bills paid. We'll see over time how that works out. But what offset that a bit was our Illinois replacement tax revenue is $24,000 more than we projected it would be. That's kind of an impossible for us to predict number in the budget. We always just kind of say, well, what did we get last year? Let's assume we'll get a little bit more. Well, we've been getting a lot more for whatever reason. This reverses a trend where for several years we were getting less and less and less because presumably the replacement tax was going away. But politics in Springfield changed and now replacement tax is back in vogue again. I don't fully understand it. Charles, maybe you
So-
explain what replacement tax is, but
I think what happened when they went to the 1970 Constitution,
right.
it changed what could be taxed, and you couldn't tax personal property anymore. But people had been relying on that, so you could get replacement tax money, and
It's charged to corporations.
yeah, it's charged to corporations.
Personal property corporations.
Right. And it's called replacement tax because it replaces tax monies we otherwise would have earned prior to 1970. It's really confusing. And that's why nobody can really figure out what it is each year.
We're just grateful to get the money.
Yeah.
We're getting good money. We'll just
Yeah.
take it and be happy. From a cash flow perspective, our revenue has exceeded our appropriations by about $189,000. Our budget planned that we would have a shortfall of $119,000. So that effectively means we got more money than we want right now by about $310,000. If we kind of say, well, we understand the $97,000 for capital projects is supply chain stuff where we want to spend it, we just can't get the equipment in the door to spend it. And adjusting for the insurance thing, that position gets reduced to about $200,000. That's kind of what I'm hoping we're going to spend a huge chunk of in the remaining weeks of June. And a trickle of bills in July that are for activities in June and similarly in August. So the more we can get that squeezed down, the better it will be for being able to plan next year's budget. But it is what it is at this point. On assets and liabilities, I don't really have anything noteworthy to comment on. On the cash and investments, I will note that our relationship with Chase is above FDIC limits just because we've taken in a lot of tax money, but we haven't been spending it. If we'd been spending it, we wouldn't be in this excess position. But that's okay. I mean, the law provides what we have to do is have Chase basically insure us for the money over the FDIC limit by buying treasuries at the New York Fed, and they have done that to comply with the law. On the outstanding items look fabulous because nothing is outside the time window to be considered stale or problematic. So Jean in the office did a great job of cleaning up all the old problematic items this past month. That's it for that portion of my report.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody, commissioners, have questions or comments for Mr. Gibbs? Right, moving on to Ms. Herman.
A lot for you all today.
Yeah.
I do want to start off by saying I'm excited by a lot of what we're bringing to you all today. Is the stuff that we've been working on since we started working with Dr. Effiam. So I'm excited about a lot of this. In terms of the rewrite of the ordinances, do you want me to go through and read what the ordinance was previously? Do you want me just to explain why the changes are being suggested? How do you want me to go through this?
Explain.
Yeah, I'm open to
explain.
just
You
an
guys don't need to
explanation.
read the whole, okay.
Yeah, just explain.
Is there a red line?
Say it again?
Is there a red line?
No.
No, she's got the current and the revised in the packet, I believe.
Okay.
The only difference between the two is that I had forgotten to add in, the basketball apology, that one of the recommendations was to have it be in the round table too. That's the only difference between the two versions. Okay, so for the ordinances, these are just the ones that were picked out by Dr. Effiam. So the first one in terms of begging and soliciting, just having that first sentence taken out, that no person shall beg or panhandle. That doesn't need to be in there. It's not protecting the park district in any way. And it could and has in the past been used against Black and brown people and people of lower socioeconomic. So that's why we wanted that removed. The parades and public gathering and all of that has already been revised. That's reflected in the ordinance already. The alcoholic liquors, the part of no persons under the influence is the same thing, so it can't be used against anybody. Disorderly conduct is the same thing. We're recommending striking the entire thing. There are articles that Andrew Weimer found, if you want to do a little bit more research on that. And in the standards of conduct, Dr. Effiam had recommended adding in that employees should, behave in a way that's in line with the equity statement. And then, Charles, we had talked about doing one that was similar to the state of Illinois, but I could not find anything similar. I don't know if you have a source or if you have a place to find that, but I scoured and I could not find like an equity statement, so to speak, in the Cook County's website at all.
Okay. I didn't look.
Okay. And then just a reminder that those are just ones that were flagged by Dr. Effiam. The rest of the ordinances haven't really been combed through. We know that we need to change a lot of gendered language. We need to split out the difference between the permits and the reservations, so that's clear to people. But as of right now, that's what we have in terms of ordinances. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. Thank you for the work. I know you guys have been working very hard on it. I like the changes you're suggesting. How and when would you see them being incorporated into the ordinance?
We're waiting on them to be finished digitized, right? Like, and then I don't know exactly, I'm assuming if you will decide to pass this, that this information will then get passed through Merlin into staff to get it rewritten, is my assumption.
So we have talked about updating the entire general ordinance, and I'd like to incorporate these changes into it, as well as removing gender language, other equity concerns. I'm also open, you and I have had this conversation, Sean and I had this conversation today, of removing kind of the misdemeanor or what I call quasi-criminal offenses in the ordinance.
I want them all gone. We don't need any of those.
I mean, we essentially agree. What Aisha and I had talked about, the reason we're making this recommendation now is because this was the chunk of work that's been in the works for a while, so like to get this done. And then the committee is planning on splitting out the rest of the ordinances with the lens that Aisha created for us, and then to pull further pieces from there. Now, how that gets translated into actually physically changing the document, clearly that's all, for you all to decide. But this is what we have so far.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that it's a work in progress. This part is finished. The expectation isn't that we make the change immediately.
And in terms of it physically getting changed in there, I think you guys can figure out how to get that done. I'm guessing it will be easier for whoever is doing that work just to have a full list of changes in one fell swoop.
Okay.
But in terms of our work with the committee, like this chunk is done,
Great.
and we're passing it off.
Thank
We're
you.
reporting this favorably.
I can't hear you around the podium.
You're reporting favorably, recommending this.
Yes. Yes.
So as far as these misdemeanors, and for instance, like the disorderly conduct, which is, I agree, is not needed to be in there, it's because, right, out of this, I don't think any of us want people posing the threat of violence or engaging in fights, but that's all covered because we're in the city of Evanston. It's
Exactly.
against the law,
Yeah.
so there's no reason we have to have this in here in our parks ordinance.
Exactly.
That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
there are no legal ramifications from any
Of this.
Right.
Right, so,
I would say that it might make sense for somebody to contact the Evanston Police and see if it matters to them at all.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I don't think it will, but I don't see what it would hurt. And if they thought there was a reason the Park District should have something that covered this, it's something to consider.
I think you're going to find that they don't even know this exists.
Probably,
I would guess that too.
probably, but
Yeah.
doesn't hurt to ask.
Marlon, in your history with other park districts, do other park districts that you
Have their
work
own-
for have these type of rules, like you can't fight in our parks?
Yeah, I've seen it in different, in
Some
different districts.
park districts, though, have their own police.
Right.
Yeah, some have their own rangers,
Forest
okay,
preserve.
but yeah.
Yeah.
And I work for the city of Chicago, where the city police department enforces the Park District ordinance
Right.
in administrative hearings and circuit court. So it's possible, but we don't have any enforcement and we don't have any prosecution.
And my recommendation
Prosecutor.
is not to do that, because you're gonna end up paying me or somebody else
Right.
to prosecute all these cases.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't mind taking the money, but it's not something this park district needs to do. You don't have that many resources, you're not that big a park district, and quite frankly, we don't have that problem.
Since we've never prosecuted any of these,
Right.
in any of our memories, just
No, it's never happened.
kick them out of the ordinance.
It's, since the current ordinance has been in, it's never happened.
Right, so.
Before that, I don't know, but
Yeah.
since then, it's never happened. And you don't see a problem in the parks, and if you do, you can address it at that time.
I appreciate your work. I think that we're going to take all this under advisement when we revise the whole thing.
Okay.
And I think we're going to end up just chopping a lot of things out completely.
Yeah, I mean, the committee agrees. Something just to keep in mind in terms of history, I'm also wondering if some of these ordinances are in there, right? Because it used to have like the arresting powers, that has been removed from the ordinances, so I'm wondering how much that had to be connected, right? Like if the Park District doesn't have arresting powers, then it needed to be listed what you couldn't necessarily arrest people for. So I think it just kind of goes in line with that, I don't know if you knew that was in there. That was removed, the board removed that, I don't know, within the last 5 years or so.
Since I've been on.
2019.
So would you like us, should we move to accept these as written, or should we just keep these and apply them?
So I don't think we need a motion. I think we're just going to accept the report and continue to work together towards the goal. And from what I'm hearing, is the board is supportive of
Yeah,
what these do.
Fantastic.
Great.
Do we know where the ordinances are in terms of being digitized?
Don't.
I'm actually not sure. I'll talk to Natalie when she gets back.
Because then once that's done, then we can get to work on the rest of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that brings me to the basketball court recommendations. So you can see in the report, there's the statement that we have put together, right? This has been sitting on the table for a little bit. We made a couple of changes from the last time you saw it. Specifically, we had a really hard time kind of describing the unique nature of having a basketball court, like literally right next to where somebody lives. Interestingly enough, I heard on the radio today, there's apparently been a lot of lawsuits around pickleball, right? The pickleball's been really hot. The sound of the pickleball hitting the paddle is literally in like the most annoying pitch range. It's the same pitch range as the garbage trucks backing up. So there's apparently been around the nation a slew of lawsuits in relation to pickleball being played outside. And then they did this big study of trying to reduce noise. They decided just to not put the pickleball courts next to residences was their solution. So when I heard that today, it reminded me of, this back and forth with the neighbors and the basketball players. But so that's the statement that the committee is recommending, be put out to the public, both on social media and, like the local newspapers, roundtable and such. There's a recommendation for the sign that would be posted, which is pretty much the same sign that's at the skate park. We just changed it a little bit to be more relevant to basketball. And then there's a list of things that we would like to see happen to help support, the signage. It's one thing to put out the statement and to have the sign up. It's a whole different thing to put action behind it and really welcome community in and making sure that we are providing the neighborhood with resources and information to make sure that they're educating themselves on not only what our policies are, but also how Black people in general are treated in neighborhoods where there's basketball playing. Any questions?
Yes, how would the Ready Committee like the board to proceed with this proposal?
Our hope is that the statement that we crafted, gets put out to the public, that the sign gets created to go to the different basketball courts. Clearly, I didn't know exactly which phone number people would want on that sign, sort of the main phone number. If there's, with the changes, I didn't know if there's gonna be something changing with that too. And then I think the rest of the stuff is essentially programming ideas in terms of like the art fair and the survey. That's stuff that we can work with Natalie and Marlon on if everyone's in support.
So I'm open to the signage. I am open to, I don't have a problem with anything that was included from the Ready Committee, but I would kind of kick it to the ED.
Yeah, I'm all for, obviously, like the signage. I think it comes from a good place, but I would be uncomfortable putting up signage outside of what we're branding or the voice of it as well. I think we'd want to be consistent in the voice of all of our signage throughout the park district. And I think that's where an audit would come in with not just this signage at the basketball, but let's look at all of the signage that we have, from your dogs must be leashed to only dogs that are leashed. There's different ways that you can communicate all of these rules. So I think this is more of a larger picture of changing one sign and putting that much, is looking at the signage, doing an audit, and then actually looking at how we want to communicate and what our focus is on that communication. Is it to stop someone from doing something or to ask someone to do more of something? So I think that's something that we need to look at throughout the district.
I would agree. I think this is similar to the ordinance discussion, and that this is a piece of a larger puzzle that we should accept this report and consider it when we go and revise all of our signage everywhere.
Exactly.
So I would move that we just accept this and keep it as informative for our overall.
You don't need to move.
Don't need to move.
Well, I have a question though. What's the timing on that? Because is
I was
this
gonna
something
say-
that's important to get out sooner than later? Like, I would hate for us to be, erring on the side of perfection for all of the signs and not getting this out now when it needs to happen now.
There's already been an email complaint about basketball being played at 2 o'clock. And we talked a little bit about this meeting, right? Like at one point, the rims were up all the time, and then that became a problem, right?
Yeah, could you want to just give a brief history of basketball over the last 10 years at Ridgeville?
So there have been a lot of complaints, both from people playing basketball, from parents whose kids play basketball, and from the neighbors. So
Is there a specific court where there's more problem? Because we've got several basketball courts.
I don't know that we have data on that, but I think from my impression, the one over by Reba, because it's right up, right, like,
Right
it
next
used
to
to
the
be full
windows.
court. I don't know if you know that whole story.
Yes.
Right, so it used to be full court, they had to take it down to half court for insurance reasons, there's a tree growing, there's lots of windows being broken. But the information that went out to the community was that Ridgeville didn't want black people playing basketball there, and that's why it went down to half court. The other one is the park that's just west of Cayman, I forget what the name of that one is. I think a lot of complaints come out of that one too. I think it's just, I mean, that court is used all the time, pretty much every time I drive past, there's people there, so I think it's a matter of usage. I don't know, Natalie and Brian are here, but I don't know if, like, it's further to the southeast, if there's as many complaints. I think it tends to be mostly these two.
And then there's one here.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, yeah, and I think the most recent complaint might have been this one.
Yeah,
If I'm not
this has been
mistaken.
getting some recently.
And how is I guess my question would be, because I asked my staff about it as well, and I asked, how many complaints have we received, and whether it's email or a phone call, because obviously I want to be aware.
And citizen comments.
Yeah, and I was,
That's where it gets heated.
okay, and I was told it was 2 complaints in the past year and a half that we've received, phone call or email. I'm a data guy, so I mean, I do look at that before obviously making a decision, is like where 10,000 households in Ridgeville, and if we've received those 2 complaints, are we doing something wrong, or should we look at this? And obviously, I'm new, so I'm just asking questions to my staff, because they're the ones who have the eyes and ears here at this point.
No, I think that's probably accurate, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just want to make sure everybody's aware. Our current compromise is that we take the rims down off of the basketball courts at 9 p.m. every evening,
And then put it back up at what time?
early in the morning.
Yeah.
That's
7, I think.
yeah,
That was the policy. Yeah, right when Brian left.
there hasn't
Yeah.
there hasn't been a lot of early morning basketball complaints.
And so I think that's one of the reasons why the calls have cut down from the neighbors, because it was limiting, when the rips were coming down, it was limiting that overnight play, which I think is, the most recent complaint came from 2 a.m. play. From my understanding now, they're just up all the time. And the other thing to consider is, it tends to be a summertime issue, it's not a complaint that generally comes in the wintertime. There have been multiple citizen comments also.
Where are these citizen comments? Are these is people coming up to us or you, or is
No,
it?
like people coming to board meetings.
Okay.
The most recent one that I remember is a parent whose black child was playing, and she was absolutely adamant that it was because her kids were playing, the rooms were taken down. So a lot of it has kind of been like lack of communication. People don't really understand why the rooms are up, why they're coming down. There was an incident at, I think it was one of the concerts last year where the rooms were taken out early, and then we got a Facebook message about that. And so when it was communicated why the rooms were taken down, apparently an older basketball player was using foul language with the younger kids, youth in the parks was going to take the rooms down anyway for when the concert starts, and they took them down early, but that also wasn't communicated, so then it gets viewed differently. I think a lot of the complaints that I've seen with clear signage, with more communication, I think that a lot of that could be alleviated. I think a lot of this is people are making assumptions because information isn't necessarily going out.
So would we put up the sign and still take the rooms down at 9 o'clock?
Yes.
Yes.
So I don't know if we want to say, like, specifically that the rooms are removed for whatever reason, just so that, I mean, I'm of the mindset to be as specific as possible so that people don't make assumptions.
And I think that's wise, right? Like, not just saying, we didn't want to include that in the signage, just we didn't know what kind of policies, right? Because this is the other piece, is it changes so regularly that people don't know what to expect either. There hasn't been established consistency. So I think if that's the plan, that they're gonna continue to be removed at 9 o'clock throughout the summer, I think that would be helpful to have that be listed.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible to put up temporary signage for now while the audit for all the signs are being done. I also suspect that there's gonna be more basketball playing this summer as more people are coming out and feeling more comfortable being around each other, so it's possible that could alleviate some miscommunication moving forward if there's something up at some point. The other thing that I want to add in there in terms of the signage, when Aisha and I met today, we talked about how this piece of, with Bridgeville's commitment to equity, that should be very available on signage also. So not only for, the basketball courts, but as you're like auditing all the signage, so people can keep in mind of having that welcoming piece of.
Yeah, what we could do is, while we audit the rest of the signage, put this up as a test, see what the reaction is, have the equity statement, bullet out these other pieces, right? Like the park closes at 9, rooms are removed or whatever, all that, and then, see how it goes while we audit the rest.
You also can consider putting a web page up regarding the basketball courts that says, could be the same language, could be slightly different, while you formulate a long-term plan, but there is something available.
I'm all for it, yeah, definitely letting our residents know, what time those come down, what time they go back up. And I think that's important to keep people involved with that and communicate to them, definitely.
I think the basketball, I do think it's a good idea for us to get signage up explaining what's going on with the basketball courts. And I do think that the part regarding equity, diversity, inclusion is very important for us to have in the parks. I'm just wondering if that statement might be better, and I'm asking, in a more primary sign in the park instead of the basketball court rules. I don't want it to get lost there or just hidden in the basketball courts. And I think it's important to have, very important to have both. I want to have the rules here. I want to have these statements. I want people to know this. I want a sign like that to be in all the parks, right? And not just on the basketball court. I want it to be here in the playground where everybody's going to see it. And I think that same that same sign may be stating this and stating our work towards equity and this and some maybe basic history of Ridgeville, something like that, could be a sign that we can put at every Ridgeville park.
Everybody needs one or the other.
Right, and that's why I think, and I think a basketball court sign, if there's confusion, if that's something that we want to get up now, I think that'd be great, and I think maybe we can, if we want to start looking at signage, or we want to start working at a sign stating, these commitments and these things they want to do, maybe that's something that we could do on a larger level at every park, if that's agreeable.
That's a lot of what we were talking about today. That will be our recommendation.
I just don't want to confuse people, and if we're having basketball rules on it, I don't want something to get lost.
Mhm.
That's a lot of text on a sign when you're trying to say rules on a sign, right?
That's
The sign
right.
should be rules, let's make it for rules, a list, easy to see, and something where it's a broader statement about our mission. To me, that's something that should be not on a basketball court rules.
And that's what
It's too important.
that the communication needs to be there with, when I see this, I think no one's gonna read that, it's, it's so much, so I think
Right.
it would be something like the signage with clear, concise communication,
Right.
and then maybe a sign that says equity lives here at every one of our parks.
Yes.
Something like that.
You could also, you can use it as at Roseville, we have a statement that we have at the end of everything, right? So you put your rules, and at the end, Ridgeville Park District is committed to advancing, it's on every piece of signage at the bottom.
Yeah.
So you have your basketball court rules bulleted out, and then at the bottom, Ridgeville Park District is your equity statement.
Seems like the most important rule that we need to convey is that this park closes at 9 o'clock, and that means the rims come down.
Yeah.
Then the rest of this is a separate, but most important message. 9 o'clock, the rims are down.
And they go back up at 7.
I believe so, yeah. I'll check the
I
exact
think you should
time.
put both times,
Yeah.
to be honest. You should have opening
Yeah.
and close.
Mhm.
And I think it should have sooner
Do
than
the
later.
rims go down at 9 or they go down between 8:30 and 9?
Also 9.
Okay.
And I think, right, the park, our parks close at, right, maybe if we want to put a reason behind that, right?
Well, so the parks don't close at 9.
Right. Parks at 11,
So,
They close at 11.
yeah.
but there's no lights,
Right.
right? And playing basketball in the
Yeah.
dark is inherently dangerous.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's, in the time I've been here, the reason we stop basketball at 9 o'clock is out of a noise consideration for the neighbors. That's it. I mean, that's why we take the rims down. I think, I agree, we should make that clear, that that's our policy and that's the reasoning.
Is that a city ordinance at 9 o'clock?
No. That's us.
For no
And it's not an ordinance, it's a
park rule.
It's a
Policy.
rule, it's a policy. It's changed since in the 3 years I've been here. And there was, prior to that, a lot of controversy regarding basketball courts. But that is the compromise that we've come to, is 9 o'clock, they come down, and truthfully, they only come down in the warmer months. In the winter, they stay out.
Well, I'd love to work on it and make it something that's simple and easy to understand for the rules then.
Something that came in mind too, that came up at some point when we were talking about this, I can't remember how long ago, but even for something temporary, just putting up a QR code that people can scan to get information, might be a temporary resolution, and it's not gonna hit everybody, not everyone's gonna have that kind of access, but that might at least get to a good amount of people as signs are being made and figured out and all that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Good idea.
I also, just as a preschool teacher, I would be in a huge favor of flipping rules and not like, you can't do this, but you're welcome to play basketball until 9 o'clock, right? Like, I think that is a much more welcoming, and quite frankly, I think
Yeah.
people generally follow rules better when you give them what they can do.
Right.
I think that would be a nice edit.
And that's what I'm looking at when I see signage and it's so aggressive and, you go to a pool sometimes like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this.
Right.
And instead it should be, keep here. Yeah. So I think that's what I want to do too with our voice here, is be more welcoming with things.
Do we need to vote on the statement or anything? Like, are we gonna do that?
I think we're just gonna receive the report tonight.
Okay.
And I'm taking notes. There's some stuff I would like to calendar out. The big one is revising the ordinance.
Okay. And then I will try to stay on top, like I know the basketball tournament is coming up in August. It just kind of made sense to me that maybe we could have, if there's time to pull this together, and I know with camp transition and everything, maybe this is something that would have to wait till next year, but seeing if we can collaborate with, of course, the first two people to come to mind are Kimona and Fuchsia, to see if they can help us pull together community art show. I think Natalie had somebody else in mind to partner with to do that too. Okay. That brings us to the equity charter. In case you don't know, the charter is on the website on the Commitment to Equity page. And so we felt with, all the changes and everything, it was a good idea just to review. A couple of the things that I want to bring attention to is, the idea that we are supposed to have a board member or two on the committee. So I'm hoping, between the five of you, I understand it's a big extra commitment having that extra meeting once a month. I don't know if it's better to have people rotate in and out of meetings, but having a board member with us is really crucial. We're very happy to have Marlon coming to the meetings now to kind of close this gap from when Natalie stopped attending, but having a board member is not only, stated in the charter that was passed, but would really be very beneficial to us working together moving forward. The other piece of the equity charter that I wanted to point out was we did get the equity lens written and passed with Dr. Effiam, but unfortunately, she never had a chance to train us on how to use the equity lens. Aisha has created a secondary equity lens to use for the ordinances that we've been trained on using. But the more general equity lens, we don't have any training on. So I was hoping that maybe moving forward with Aisha's contract in the next chunk of work list, that we can have that added on there. I also want to point out that if the equity lens had kind of been up and running, that hopefully that would have been used during the director search, and that would have alleviated some of the concerns of both the committee and the community, that the committee or members of the community were involved in the hiring of the new director. I also do want to let you know that the committee in general is expressing a lack of trust and a kind of rupture of relationship between the board and the committee right now, because we were told that we were going to be part of the process and we were not included. And I feel that's particularly important now because I feel like we're at a point where we could reach out and hopefully grow the committee. But if those are the things that are happening, people aren't going to want to join. No one wants to spend this amount of time to be told that we're going to be partaking in certain things when we're not going to be. So that's another reason I'd really like to get some training on that equity lens, that gets used moving forward. And then also as a part of the charter, when people join the board, they're supposed to be undergoing equity training. There is the recorded training that the rest of the board did. But there's also an opportunity, there's an hour of outstanding training that Aisha is going to be preparing for the youth in the parks. So it's also possible that the new board members could join that, so you get to have like an in-person experience and not just being by video. Because that would be a little more beneficial, I think. Any questions or comments on that chunk? If anyone is interested and willing to join the committee, feel free to reach out. I can answer any questions. Although our last meeting was really long, as you can tell by our board report, I do try to keep them as short as possible. I'm a very chatty person. I think I do a pretty good job not chatting too much in meetings. All right, anything else on that? We just move on. The next piece, as you all are looking towards next year's budget, we wanted to make some recommendations for equity-minded sponsorships moving forward. I think, if I'm not mistaken, money already got allocated for the Evanston Pride Parade. Is that correct? Did I see that email come through?
I think so, yeah. That was through, yeah.
I thought Juneteenth as well.
Yes,
Yep.
so we just wanted to remind you all to put that through for next year too, to make sure that those are allotted in the budget. And then another one that we are recommending, I don't know if you all are familiar with the District 65 Drink Drive. It's really cool. I will try to remind you all next year when it's happening. You hop in your car and they tell you what station to tune to, and they give you a map, and you get to listen to the audio read by the junior high kids at King Arts Elementary School, and they narrate Dr. Martin Luther King's experiences in Evanston, which I had no idea that he had done a bunch of work in Evanston. And you get to drive around and look at the different, like the old Foster School. It's a really neat event. It started out just being a King Arts event, and now it's District 65 wide. So that's another opportunity, I think, to connect with the community and support equity-minded events in our community. Any questions or comments on that? Oh, I do want to, I realized, I was thinking we were going to have another meeting between now and 4th of July, and I realized that we are not. We did have a conversation at our last meeting about having some of the 4th of July races be for people with varied abilities. Mark Carlin is also on a committee for, I think it's aging, and I forget what else, or I don't know if you remember. we don't have a meeting between now and then, but if you are willing, I know you're running the races now, to take some suggestions of things to do where, more people can participate in that event. I like to think that I could participate in that sort of stuff, and I know better. And I know there are people who are in much worse positions in terms of mobility than I am, so that I think that'd be really welcoming for the park district to do. And I think Mark said he had some ideas around that too, so.
Yeah, I will reach out to him. And on that too, I've been thinking of gender issues. In my experience, the 4th of July is gendered races.
I've never been, I didn't realize. Thank you for thinking about that.
Yeah. So I've thought of a couple ways. One is male identified, female identified. That I think makes sense to me. Any other thoughts?
I mean, do people even have to be split up to run? Are we dangerous if you run together?
No, and but girls versus, so it's by ages and gender. And older kids are faster than younger kids, and oftentimes males are faster than females. And I also really appreciate female sports as a subsect. So another idea I had is open and female identified. Anybody can run an open, and then female identified. That's what I was leaning towards.
I think anytime there's more options than less, I think is the way to go. Like maybe even there's like an identified male, identified female, and just like anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the ages, I absolutely, that's a very clear need.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want any little people shoving kids over, so we don't lose.
And
I'm not speaking from experience.
also, this is in conjunction with the city of Evanston. They give us all the supplies and
It's the city.
the manual. Yeah.
City of Edison has the 4th of July celebration at a number of parks throughout the city. And Ridgeville is one of the locations. So it's City of Edison supplies Ridgeville with the eggs and the different materials needed to host these 4th of July games.
That said, they're pretty hands off. We can do whatever we want.
Yes.
And I'm happy to.
Awesome. If you want, I can like send both you and Mark an email, connect the two of you.
That'd be great. Would you
Awesome.
mind?
I can do that.
Thank you.
All right, so that leaves me with one last item. Does the committee have to be meeting in person moving forward too, or are we okay still being virtual?
No, the committee is subject to the Open Meetings Act. So you're now required to meet,
In person?
at a location.
Okay, so with that in mind, and in all honesty, we might end up losing our committee.
So, I can't always be here because of work, so I can be on Zoom from here, right?
Yes.
Somebody can have a computer open and I can be elsewhere.
But
So
do we have to have a quorum in person?
Yes.
You do have to have a quorum person?
We only have 3 people in our, which is not enough people in the committee to even start. Right, I mean, it's a childcare issue, right?
Oh, I
Expecting people to pay for childcare when we're volunteering for stuff is a little challenging right now. We will see what we can do.
So, are they subject to the same, right, like we can't talk between
Yes.
us more than
Correct.
2 of us?
Correct.
It's the same for them?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to get creative, right? Like maybe if because we have different people on the committee now than we did before, maybe we can meet earlier. Right, and there's toys somewhere, right? Like,
I think part of the reason for this is that whenever this started, the board at that time wanted it to be open meetings. And they wanted to encourage public participation. They thought open meetings was the way to go.
So we could change the structure potentially.
You could. It's a little bit tricky, but there's a lot of gray area in the law when you have this is an elected body. When the elected body forms a committee of some sort to do something, on whether they're subject to the Open Meetings Act. To the extent that you're referring issues to them and expecting them to report to you, it probably needs to be an open meeting. To the extent that they formed their own committee, and were just meeting to talk about things, and came to this meeting and talked at public comments, then they can do whatever they want. They're private citizens.
What about us paying an equity consultant to be a part of that? Us paying an equity consultant to attend a citizen meeting.
It just changes the shade of gray.
I don't know. I'd have to look at what the Attorney General said about that and some of the case law. But
The fundamental problem I have from a treasury perspective is it's legal for us to tax the taxpayers and spend it on a recreation activity.
yeah,
That's it. It's really questionable that it's legal for us to be spending taxpayer money for an equity consultant. Now, if we got a grant or we raised the money through some other fashion, not a problem. But it's the fact that we're using taxpayer money that we're only authorized to collect for a recreational program. And the more we deviate from that, the more we open ourselves up to a taxpayer advocacy lawsuit that will succeed. We get regularly sued, but they've never succeeded.
yeah.
That was the reason why, when we first started this, we buried that expense under board development, because the original envisioning of it was to educate the board on the programs, and then the organization had to take over the running it. So it was a board development activity. But to break it out as a separate line item, really called attention to it, was going to cause us problems with the audit, and probably cause us other problems.
All right. Back to your very practical question. It sounds like the committee is subject to the Open Meeting Act. Sounds like you're thinking creatively about it. Charles, could you think creatively about it?
If you wanted to disband the committee and then just allow them to meet as their own committee, it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And then they can report back like any other citizen can on what they think. You could do that, and it's not subject to the Open Meeting Act. If they want to form a ready club that could have space here to meet or
Sure.
meet virtually, they could do that too.
We could even put it on the agenda as an update from the Ready Club every month.
It could be a subset under citizen comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
To make it really clear that it's viewed as citizen comment, not an entity of the park district.
But then they're going to control the membership.
Right.
And whatever they do, you can refer issues to them and they can ignore you. But right now, they're somewhat subservient to you. So, it's whatever you guys want to do in that. My suggestion would be that people think about it. And then decide how you want to deal with that in the next couple of months.
I would suggest we come back in September with some ideas.
October's better.
October's better.
Yeah, September, we're busy with the appropriations ordinance.
Hopefully that'll be quick, but.
All right, so I think that's where we're leaving it.
Okay. Would that also notify
No.
They have to revisit.
No, because the board has approved the equity charter.
Yeah, that work's been done, right?
What's
Might need to
built
look at some of the
into
language.
it is the committee,
Oh, you're right.
so.
Yeah, if we
would
dissolve
have to
the,
completely-
if we dissolve the committee, would we have to update the equity charter? Probably.
That'll be part of our October discussion, right?
Add it to the agenda.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we need to have a next step before we get there.
I personally would lean towards trying to make a hard push to get more people on the committee that could be regularly in person, so we could maintain its integrity. And then have that Zoom option for those on the time that they can attend. That's what I would lean towards.
Okay.
That's everything I have to do today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Jerry, you have a part 2 of a financial overview.
Did you skip over the discussion of the local government efficiency?
We're efficient. It's been proven.
Is that efficient?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, so we have no old business. We are on to new business. One is the discussion of the Local Government Efficiency Act. Vaughn, you want to fill us in on that?
Yep, so we had our first meeting today, and we've decided that we're going to look at if it's something that we need to pursue, whether it's sharing of, obviously, resources, whether it's salt trucks or things like that with the city of Evanston. We're looking at things that are similar even with the school district. And our next meeting will be in October. We're going to discuss this a little bit in more detail.
Right.
Is there a full membership on the committee now?
We did that at the last meeting. We appointed Jerry and Mike
And the
Nero.
board's approved it?
Yeah.
Good.
And then all 5 commissioners. And
They approved Jerry.
and we did also say that
With
if
my hat as a resident of the district.
if there are other interested community members, it does not need to be an exclusive club. So we're open to any community member who's interested in being a part of that. All right. Now, Jerry, we're on to the financial overview. Thank you.
Put on the other hat.
All right, this is the part where hopefully I don't put you all to sleep. Part 2 of the introduction to kind of how finances work for the park district. What we call, last month we went over the calendar of activities. This month I'm going to go through the funds and the financial statements, the financial reports that we work with on a regular basis. I'm going to start with the balance sheet. This document lists our assets and liabilities and is formatted to bridge between the trial balance, which is our report in the district, and the annual certified financial report, which I don't know if everybody has seen a copy of that annual report yet. It's a nice big thick book that our outside auditors produce, and it gets filed with the state, and the county is in conformity with the Government Accounting Standards Board requirements for government accounting. This just basically makes it easy to bridge our set of books with how the information is presented in the annual report. One of the things I have to do with the annual report is kind of make sure their numbers match our numbers, and this was developed to aid that process. But behind this is a more detailed version, which is the trial balance. As an example, when I talk about detail, on the balance sheet, it has a line item that says taxes receivable, and it's taxes receivable by fund. But what it doesn't do on the balance sheet is tell you how many of those taxes are from this year's taxes, and how much of those taxes are from prior year taxes. But on the trial balance, those are broken out in greater detail. On an ongoing monthly basis, you don't necessarily care or need to see that. So I don't typically give you the trial balance. I give you the balance sheet because it's a more summarized version of the detail. But I want you to know that this exists, because this is kind of the key document of everything. It lists all of our asset accounts, all of our liability accounts, and how the money flows in and out from off of all of the other reports. In my package, I kind of included a diagram that showed how the different reports relate to each other. So when you go to well, let's go across the funds first. So it starts on the trial balance with a column called the combining funds total. It's kind of a nice shorthand for at a glance seeing what, how big is the park district? Well, on our balance sheet, we're, just shy of $1.5 million. But the combining total doesn't really exist in any form that's recognized or usable by other entities. Instead, all of our monies is tracked by funds. We tax according to our general fund, and we spend according to our general fund. We tax according to our recreation fund, and we spend according to our recreation fund. We also have some what are called special revenue funds, or other documents called minor funds. They're special purpose funds. So we have a fund for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. That's for our participation in their pension program for key employees. We have a fund for Social Security liability. So the park district share of the Social Security taxes we have to pay comes out of the Social Security fund, and we have a separate tax that we impose on all the properties in the district to fund the Social Security. Our liability insurance is a separate line item on your property tax bill that funds our liability insurance. Capital projects is the last fund, and capital projects we do not tax for. Capital projects receive money from either the general or the recreation fund, or directly into it from other sources. Sometimes we get a grant, for example, or a bequest. A few years ago, we had a resident of the district in their estate give us $60,000 to put into our capital fund for special beautification projects. That's how our money gets into the capital projects. We also have capital expenses that take place in the general or the recreation fund, and those are really, that's where we're going to tax the taxpayers this year, and we're going to do the project this year. When I say this year, I mean this year from a budget standpoint. Because of the timing of how taxes come in, it might span multiple years, but from our ordinances and stuff, it's in a one-year ordinance. The thing about appropriations is they exist for the year in which you authorize them, the appropriations ordinance. At the end of that year, that authority expires. So if we don't spend money in that year, the way we preserve the money, we've taxed the taxpayer, we've collected the money, but for whatever reason we didn't use the money we said the way we said we were going to. But next year we're going to really do the project. We don't want to tax the taxpayers again, because then we open ourselves up to, well, how did you tax us twice to spend it once? So that would be an example of, well, that project's going to get moved over to the capital projects fund. You're going to vote on a motion to move the money that we collected and earmark it in the capital projects fund for that project in the subsequent year. Anything that gets into the capital projects fund, we can't just like save money. We can't just collect money and save it for capital projects down the road. Anything we put in the capital projects fund has to be assigned to a specific project in that budget year. Now, we might not spend the whole amount we plan to on a project, so we do sometimes accumulate a little surplus in there just because we performed under budget. But what we need to do is in the next season, next budget plan, we need to get that money allocated to a specific project. So that's kind of the uniqueness of the capital projects fund. The other fund we have is the working cash fund, and this one's sometimes misunderstood. It's not, if people see that, oh, you have $196,000 there, let's spend it on something. We cannot touch that money. That money is there just to give us liquidity. In the days before what happened was the state legislature made a one-time offering where we could tax the taxpayers and collect some money to put it into here. Prior to that happening, due to the timing of how we get our money and when we spend our money, we would hit periods where we were short liquidity, and we would have to go out and essentially get a loan. It wouldn't be called a loan, but it was basically a loan on future tax revenue. And that, of course, drove our expenses up because you got to pay interest on the loan. So So, and the problems and the bureaucracy and the complexity of doing all of that and above certain thresholds, having to have a referendum and go to the voters, it was not necessarily an easy thing to do. So the working cash fund was developed to give us some reserves to tide us over through the timing problems. And that's what the working cash fund is all about.
So it's essentially a reserve fund,
Exactly.
rainy day fund,
Exactly.
maybe.
Right. If we have to touch that money and use it, we must repay it in the same fiscal year. We cannot pay it out next year. It's got to be repaid this year. So that money just kind of sits there. We do earn interest on it. We have the choice to let the interest increase the balance in that fund or take the interest and apply it to the general fund. We happen to opt to take the interest on that money into the general fund. And that's that was a decision made years ago. We've just been doing it that way. If we ever want to change that, we certainly could. So that's kind of a brief introduction to the funds. Going down the line items on the report, I'm not going to go through them all, but the key one is cash and investments, because that really represents what do we have in the bank. As opposed to taxes receivable, that's kind of more an accounting entry. It inflates our balance sheet. For example, we look at taxes receivable, it says we have $380,000 in total in taxes receivable. That's an asset to us. But at the same time, on the liability side of the balance sheet, we show that as a deferred taxes due. In other words, we don't have that money to spend yet. So it's kind of more an accounting entry. What we really have in the bank, we maybe have total assets of close to $1.5 million, but we really only have cash in the bank of $1,100,000. And it's held in bank accounts that are all accounted for under the general fund, and it's through kind of some accounting maneuvers that it gets spread and made to appear as cash in all of the other funds. That's a relatively recent way of handling that Sikich, our current outside auditors, had us do this way. Prior to that, we used to use what was called due from, due to accounting. So you'll see a couple accounts on the trial balance that we really don't use anymore that basically did that accounting in a slightly different way. But that's what's going on there. Down at the bottom, when you go down on the liabilities and fund balances, there's a line 240 and a line C500, C240 and C500. That's the fund balances. On the trial balance, what you're seeing is the fund balance as of the beginning of the year, and it stays that way all year long until we do the closing entries for the year when we update the balances. On the balance sheet, we modify that through the year, and what we're doing is basically on the trial balance, there's a line that says revenue less disbursements. We're basically reflecting our current moment revenue minus our expenses or our appropriations year to date in that line item. That line item on the trial balance, how did we get that $188,000? Well, that's what's detailed to you on the statement of revenue and disbursements. So if you go to the statement of revenue and disbursements report now, the top portion of it is showing how all of our income, how all of our revenue came in to the district so far this year, and how that's performing relative to the plan being the ordinance. The bottom part of the sheet has a line for appropriations that has the total appropriations year to date, and it's just a single line item on this report, but the detail where that came from is the appropriations ledger. So that one line item is further broken down by the appropriations ledger. So the appropriations ledger feeds into here. The income minus the appropriations gives us the net that feeds into the trial balance. Now on the appropriations ledger, there's a few line items up under the general fund that are for unapproved items. These are situations where somehow we have spent the money, usually it's petty cash expenditures, but you have those entries can't be classified yet because you haven't voted to approve those expenditures. And that's what the outstanding items report is all about. So For example, this month, the $7,279.58 under petty cash unapproved appropriations is detailed on the outstanding items report. There's one of the categories that's feeding that number. That's the detail that ties to the number on the appropriations ledger. On the reconcilement, this takes all the bank accounts and then reconciles how they spread to the various funds. But within the bank accounts, you have things that you have approved that do not yet show up on the bank statement because for whatever reason, the person we paid has not cashed their check or there's a timing issue as to why the payment isn't yet reflected at the bank. And those are another type of outstanding item that are also on the outstanding items report. So some of these categories feed to the appropriations ledger, and some of these categories feed to the reconcilement of the bank accounts. The numbers here off the reconcilement feed back to the trial balance as the cash and investment line on the trial balance. So that's what this little chart was showing you, and I just kind of talked and walked you through the same points by holding up the individual reports here and giving you the narrative to it. I think that's pretty much the key points. I kind of said a lot of the same stuff in the narrative write-up that I sent out with the reports, but that's your introduction to the financial reports and the funds. Any things you want to discuss? Maybe you can put it under your pillow and sleep on it.
Will this be the final exam?
Of course.
I was expecting so much worse after you talked to me about it. Great job.
Hey, I gotta run, guys, I'm sorry.
Moving on. Marlon, do you want to
Yeah.
talk us through the tentative 2024
All right.
2024 budget?
Tentative 2024 budget. Everyone should have one. If you don't, let me know. First off, thank you so much. This is Brian putting this together before he left and walking me through some of these things. Jerry, been great to work with on this, so I'm going to be leaning on you a ton on this going forward. A great analogy that Jerry uses for this is that this is tentative. This is cement that is nowhere near being dry right now. It's just recently, not even poured yet. We're mixing right now.
Okay.
All right, we're just mixing right now. So, a couple of things that I can point out, Jerry, butt in, tell me if I'm wrong or right, whatever, on these things. As you can see with the proposed total general fund, we're a little bit less than the 393 from last year. But
If I could just maybe jump in and explain what we're looking at a little bit here. Page 1 is a summary that very closely approximates the appropriations ledger. It's all the expense categories in summary. The subsequent pages 2 through 6 are the line item details behind each account. So you'll see like CA1 has a total of 42,000. Well, how did we get to 42,000? Well, it's the corporate secretary, the corporate treasurer, the office assistant, miscellaneous items, and then we've got a little rounding factor that plugs because we try to just work with relatively round numbers on this report. But what's important is to kind of focus on the details in this month, next month, and to some extent in August. But by August, the concrete starts to harden. So really, this month and next month, get everything in the details that you want to spend money on in the next 12 months, because this becomes the Bible for how we can spend money. If it doesn't get in here now,
right.
we won't be able to.
And that's why I've been looking at picnic tables with chests and things like that. So, because right now I'm able to actually budget and put those things in for parks.
Page 7, we're not going to focus on too much now. We won't focus on page 7 until we get to August and September. Page 7 says, okay, here's how we're going to spend it, but here's how we're going to pay for it. And right now, I don't want you to worry about how we're going to pay for it. I want you to think of all the ways you want to spend money kind of uninhibited.
You just
And
told me.
then we'll figure out
Yeah.
we have a way to pay for it. And that's what we'll start doing in August.
And just to let you know too, I'm being very open with this with our team and our staff, so I can talk to them and see what their needs are coming in the next year. Marcos, Natalie, everyone else, seeing where, where their needs are, where we can improve. So right now, like I said, this is extremely tentative. You're obviously going to see something much tighter in the next presentation, because I'll get more input also from our team.
Marlon, at what
Yeah.
point you had floated an idea to me of hiring
Yes.
somebody new? Is that in here?
No, not yet.
Come.
Not yet. So that'll be something that's going to be personnel.
It's pretty much the way Brian drafted
Yeah.
it before he left.
Right.
Marlon doesn't have a lot of
Yeah.
fingerprints on this yet.
I winked at Jerry a few times though when I'd see them work on something. I go, remember what we talked about?
Come.
Speaking for myself, this is a lot to try to absorb, having just been handed.
Right.
Yeah.
So I,
We'll need some time with this.
yeah, I'd like to
Yeah.
absorb it.
Of course.
But you don't have to wait till the next board meeting to have conversations.
Absolutely.
Reach out one-on-one.
Please, yeah.
with Marlon over the next
Yep.
month. This is his document. This is his roadmap for how he's gonna run the district for the next 12 months. I
Very good.
try not to, I kind of sit off to the side and oversee that it conforms.
Oh, he
to
does
certain
this.
rules, But.
Get in there.
I'm not-
Get back in your lane.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not the guy that offers this, he is.
So yeah, I'd encourage all commissioners to communicate directly with Marlon if you have ideas. Also, if you have something you'd like to do in the next year, paint the park benches. Now's the
Get rid of the
time.
cannon.
Get rid of that cannon. That's top of my list.
We're gonna get money for that. It's gonna become revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a scrap guy. So-
I do have a question.
Yep.
When numbers go down in the proposed, is that just because, like, how it was spent this year, or like?
How it was
It
spending.
seems like curious that the administrative salaries would go down, or that the health insurance would go down.
Well, like on administrative salaries, there is kind of a logical reason to that. We have, first of all, we have Brian for the whole year, but then we also layered in several months of
Okay,
having
right.
Marlon on
Okay.
staff too. So
That makes
Right.
next year we won't have Brian, and there won't be an overlap going on.
I don't know. I saw him walking around the other day around here.
Is that the
So
same thing for the insurance, health insurance?
Did he
Because-
get
Yes.
we
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Good eye.
I was like, things are getting more
Yeah.
expensive. Now I'm getting the voice.
No, that's what we talked about when we were looking at it. We're like, this is less. Let's.
And this is early, this is likely
Yeah.
to change. That,
Okay.
that spending column is likely to go up.
In July, you'll ask me, why are we spending so much here and we didn't last year?
Like I noticed the basketball court.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Yeah.
vandalized basketball court in here.
Yeah.
So I know there's a line item.
Yeah.
that's gonna bump things up.
That way, I would definitely look at this. This is a great starting point that Brian left for us, but it's definitely going to, there's going to be some changes in it.
So if we have thoughts, we should just reach out.
Yeah, let me know.
So why is there nothing for the after-school program? Did that
We
get
didn't
changed?
spend a dime of it this year because the city didn't run it. And so
Okay.
next year, we're just gonna assume it's more of the same, we're not running it.
That was a big one.
I was wondering if they just moved to another category or something.
All right, anything else on the budget? All right, moving on to discussing beer and wine sales at summer concerts. This is something we've talked about over the years. We currently have one vendor who's interested in selling beer and wine. My thought is that beer and wine it's possible for the board to authorize the executive director to issue permits to sell beer and wine. My gut is that we should authorize Marlon to enter into agreements with, Charles's oversight.
There's nothing legal about selling it?
The Park District, alcohol can be sold out of a building in a park district in Illinois. That is permitted. It's not permitted under our general ordinance, I believe, so we'd have to change that.
No, it's with the permit. It says with the permit.
It says with a permit, I
Yeah.
believe.
So that's kind of what I'm leaning
Yeah.
towards today is authorizing a permit.
And the permit comes from the board?
Well, they're gonna have to get something from the city.
So they get so what for this to happen, they need to have a state liquor license. They need to have a City of Evanston liquor
Right.
license, existing. Then they need to get a special event liquor license, which is like through the city, which is like a 1-day thing. Typically, we would ask them to add us as additionally insured on their mandatory insurance. You know, they would kind of absorb all of the liability on it.
But it's gonna have to be sold out of a building.
But it can't be sold out like the food truck?
Why do you think
Because
that?
that's what the statute says.
Which statute?
It's in the Park District
The
Code.
Park District Code?
We have a Park District Code here.
But so it's in the Park District Code.
Yeah. I have it.
Okay.
I'll email it to you.
All right. Well, let's.
And I'm not exactly sure what a building is. Can a tent be a building?
Sure. I mean, we
Something
have.
as Mark could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a building.
Yes.
But, I mean, I guess it depends where you want to sell it. So,
And the idea was that it would be at the summer concerts, you know, during the concerts, which usually wrap up by 8:00.
and so right now, the ordinance says that somebody, I don't remember exactly what it is, but something to the effect that you can't be under the effect of alcohol in the parks. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but if people are drinking and we're having sold there, we obviously would need to change that.
Yeah, because I know in Chicago, there's something about drinking in the public way. So, is that?
I don't know if it's the city, I don't know how they do it. There's a different law for the Chicago Park District. So the state statute's different for Chicago Park District. So I
My
can't
reading
tell
of
you.
our ordinance is we removed all our enforcement capabilities anyway. So I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
that's
what we would
enforcement, but
do.
that still doesn't mean that, I mean, we shouldn't allow something to happen that is against the ordinance. It's bad form.
But these are all our original
Yeah, we
Park
can
District's
change that.
ordinances.
Sure, we can strike the ordinance,
Right.
which,
I just think we should.
But
if
but
we're
are
gonna
you
do this.
asking if it's illegal to drink outside
Yeah.
in general? Like through the city? Like does the city of Evanston allow you to drink in the public way?
we would get a special event permit from
There
the
there
city.
would be for that, yeah.
It would say where you're allowed to consume alcohol. So you can't
Only do it right
buy
now.
it there and walk
Right.
it to your house.
Right.
But if you buy it there and are within the enumerated area, you're fine. I don't see this being a huge deal. I don't see it being a huge moneymaker. I don't see a
I think
lot
we do it once and see how it works.
Yeah.
No.
That's my thought, a pilot.
Yeah.
Maybe this 3 or 4 concerts, see how it works.
I discussed this with the team, and it was an overwhelming yes. Let's go for it.
And it's only here in Wayne, right?
Yeah.
If you guys want to look at it, the ordinance that talks about the
Do you have it
being
there?
intoxicated, it's in my
It's in
report,
the
the
report, yeah.
whole.
Right.
And it's
Do we have to like vote on it?
602 A and B, page 21 of the ordinance, if you have it. All right, so 602 alcoholic liquors. A, no person under the influence of alcoholic liquor shall enter into, be, or remain on Park District property.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
Okay. And then 2, no person shall sell, possess, drink, use, or deliver any alcoholic liquor on Park District property without having first obtained a permit therefore from the Park District.
I mean, the Ready Committee has already recommended eliminating A.
Yeah, and under the influence is big.
It's very.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
That's what we were talking about, like, does that mean like you consumed alcohol, that, right, like?
Yeah. You know, or you, do you defer to state criminal law under the influence, driving under the influence, or?
I don't know what it would mean. I think you might have trouble if you actually had to try to prosecute that.
So I'm all right leaving 602A for the time being
Understood.
and authorizing the executive director to issue a permit to sell alcohol
Under B.
under 602B for, one-time event at the concert with legal oversight. Anybody else have any concerns, issues?
Sounds great.
Yeah, I think we also give the executive director the right to revoke it if it doesn't work out.
No. All right, so I move that the board authorizes the executive director to issue a permit for a vendor to sell beer and wine
I second.
at
Oh, sorry. No worries.
at the Wednesday night concerts this summer on a trial basis with legal oversight, legal sign off.
I'm going to make a statement in that I represent a good number of restaurants and bars in Evanston. And so I don't think I'm going to vote on this.
Don't think what?
I'm going to vote on this.
You're abstaining.
Yes.
I'm going to abstain because
There's a conflict.
potential, conflict.
I am in the same boat.
Then it's not going to pass.
But I don't. But I don't.
Your vendor is in Chicago.
Well, I have. I don't see it as a conflict. I don't see it as a legal conflict, or a personal conflict. So I don't plan on abstaining. If we were handpicking people I did business with, I would abstain.
I second.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
I abstain.
All those abstain? Okay. The vote passes 3-0 with one abstention. All right. Discussing implementing a consent agenda. Marlon, you want to talk about
Yeah,
this?
so with the consent agenda, I think it would be in the lines of efficiency in local government. You'd be able to actually put things like approval of bills, petty cash, into one approval consent agenda. Could be more than 2, 3, so you wouldn't have to go through each one and actually approve it. So it would save a little bit of time. At the same time, though, you can also take it out and discuss it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that every time, you're just going to approve it and not discuss it.
So any commissioner can take anything
Yes.
off of the
Say-
consent agenda
yes.
and take it back to
Mhm. To discussion.
discussion. Anybody have any thoughts about this?
I'm opposed to this. Our agenda is not overwhelming. I also believe in transparency. And as long as we're having a public meeting, I think all items should be at least introduced and briefly discussed. I've seen this in the city of Evanston work in a very negative way in eliminating transparency as to what is being spent. So I'm going to be opposed to this. I would say we could revisit it in a year or so or 6 months if we find that the meetings are unwieldy and this would help. But I'm not in favor of this right now.
I agree with Sean for the time being that I don't know that it's necessary. We have a new executive director and a new board. And I would err on the side of transparency. So at this time, I would be against moving to the consent agenda.
Against what? Move to?
Using the consent agenda for our meetings.
Going forward. Mhm.
In the past, it's not been those types of issues that have slowed meetings down.
Exactly.
It's Jerry.
And they implemented this at the Administration and Public Works Committee in Evanston, and it made the meetings longer.
Yeah, so I at this time, I appreciate the idea of being more efficient. But I'm open to revisiting it. But as this new board is kind of getting its feet under them, I prefer to go down the agenda. Anybody else? No strong feelings?
Either way.
All right. You have anything else on that?
No.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the call of the commissioners.
Just for out of curiosity, this is listed as for action. Does that mean we were supposed to?
If there's not a motion,
Yeah.
there's not a motion. I think it signals that there could be a motion we could move forward on. All right. Moving on to the call of the commissioners. Julie, could you call the commissioners?
Diana Anton? No, nothing. Palmer?
I have nothing.
Jones?
No report tonight.
Mitchell?
Nothing. Thank you. Are there any citizen comments? All right. Hearing none, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right. Pleasure.